The booing started before Mike Tyson even reached the ring. It rolled down from the upper decks like a wave, gathering force as it moved through the arena. By the time he stepped through the ropes, the sound was everywhere. 15,000 people, most of them on their feet, hands cupped around their mouths, voices raised in collective rejection. They weren't just rooting against him, they were trying to will him out of existence. Tyson stood in his corner and looked at nothing. His face was blank, his hands hung at his sides. The noise washed over him, but he didn't react, didn't acknowledge it. He had heard it before, in other arenas, other cities. It didn't matter where he fought or who he fought. There was always a portion of the crowd that wanted to see him lose, wanted to see him hurt. And tonight, in this particular building, with this particular opponent, that portion was nearly everyone. The opponent was a local fighter. Not local in the sense that he was from this city, but close enough. 2 states over. A place where people talked the same way and rooted for the same teams and felt a kinship that went beyond boxing. He was undefeated, 28 wins, a legitimate contender, and he had done something that most fighters facing Tyson never managed to do. He had made the crowd believe that he could win, believe that Tyson was beatable, believe that tonight, finally, someone would put the bully in his place. The booing intensified when Tyson's name was announced. The ring announcer's voice barely carried over the noise. People were standing on their chairs, waving towels, screaming themselves hoarse. This wasn't a sporting event. This was a ritual, a collective expression of hostility that felt almost religious in its intensity. They wanted blood. Tyson turned his head slightly and looked toward the crowd, not at anyone in particular, just a slow sweep of his eyes across the sea of faces, all of them contorted with anger or excitement or hope. And then he turned back to his corner and went still again, waiting. The opponent shadowboxed in the opposite corner, feeding off the energy. His trainer was leaning through the ropes, shouting encouragement, but the words were lost in the noise. The opponent didn't need words. He could feel the support, could feel 15,000 people behind him, lifting him, believing in him. And that belief, that collective faith, made him feel invincible, made him feel like tonight was the night. The referee called them to the center. Tyson walked forward with his head down, hands loose. The opponent walked forward with his chest out, eyes bright. They stood face to face, and the booing somehow got louder. The referee gave his instructions, but no one could hear them. He motioned for them to touch gloves. They did, barely, just a tap, and then they turned and walked back to their corners. The bell rang. The opponent came out fast, aggressive. He threw a jab immediately, trying to establish control, trying to show Tyson and the crowd that he wasn't afraid. The jab missed. Tyson had already slipped to the side. The opponent reset and threw a combination. 1-2, jab, right hand. Tyson moved his head, and both punches cut through empty air. The crowd roared, not because anything had landed, but because their fighter was pressing, attacking, taking the fight to Tyson. Tyson circled to his left, hands up, head moving in small circles. He wasn't countering, wasn't pressing back, just moving, watching. The opponent followed him, cutting off the ring, throwing punches to keep Tyson on the defensive. Another jab, another right hand. Tyson slipped them both and took a step back. The crowd was on its feet. The noise was deafening. 10 seconds had passed. The opponent threw a left hook, a real punch, trying to catch Tyson coming in. But Tyson wasn't coming in. He was just there, standing in range but not engaging. The hook missed by inches. The opponent reset and threw another combination. Jab, jab, right hand, left hook. 4 punches in quick succession. Tyson's head moved with each one. Small adjustments, slipping, rolling. None of them landed clean, but the crowd didn't care. Their fighter was working, pressing, winning. 15 seconds, and then Tyson moved, not forward, not backward, just a small shift in weight, a subtle change in his stance, and suddenly the space between them felt different. The opponent threw another jab, and this time Tyson didn't slip it. He caught it on his glove and in the same motion stepped inside. Close now, closer than the opponent expected, and Tyson threw a left hook to the body, short, compact, no windup, just a sudden rotation of his torso, and the punch was there. It landed clean, just below the ribs. The sound carried even over the noise of the crowd, a dull, heavy thud. The opponent's expression changed. His mouth opened slightly, his guard dropped an inch, and in that moment, Tyson stepped back and reset. Didn't follow up, didn't press, just stepped back and waited. 19 seconds. The booing didn't stop, but something else happened, something harder to define. The energy in the arena shifted, not the volume. The volume stayed the same, but the quality of the noise changed. The hostility was still there, the rejection. But underneath it now was something else. Attention. Real attention. The kind of attention that comes when people realize they're watching something they don't fully understand yet. The opponent reset. He was still moving, still throwing punches, but his rhythm had changed. There was a hesitation now, a half-second delay before each punch. His eyes were wider, his breathing was heavier. And the crowd, even as they continued to boo, even as they continued to root for him, could feel it, could sense it, the shift. The commentators at ringside felt it too. One of them leaned into his microphone and said something that would be clipped and replayed in highlight packages for years. "That body shot," he said quietly, "that changed something." And he was right. It had. Not because it hurt the opponent, not because it damaged him, but because of how it happened. The speed, the precision, the way Tyson had closed distance and delivered a punch that looked effortless, like he had been holding back and had just chosen, for one brief moment, to show what he was capable of. The opponent's corner felt it. His trainer stopped shouting encouragement and leaned forward, hands gripping the ropes, eyes narrowed. He had seen that punch, had seen the way his fighter reacted, and he knew, in the way that experienced trainers know, that something had shifted. The game plan was still intact. His fighter was still competitive, but the margin for error had just gotten smaller. The opponent felt it most of all. He was still moving, still fighting, but the invincibility he had felt 19 seconds ago was gone, replaced by awareness. The awareness that the man standing across from him wasn't just strong or fast or dangerous. He was precise, controlled, and that one punch, delivered with such casual efficiency, was a message, a statement. This is what I can do when I choose to. Imagine what happens when I choose to do more. The crowd felt it too. The booing continued, but the energy behind it had changed. Before, it was righteous, confident, the sound of people who believed their fighter would win and wanted to help him do it. Now it was defensive, louder but less certain, the sound of people trying to will something into existence that they were no longer sure was possible. The rest of the first round played out with the opponent pressing and Tyson moving, circling, slipping punches, occasionally stepping inside to throw a single punch, body shot, jab, short right hand, and then stepping back out. He wasn't dominating, wasn't overwhelming. He was just there, present, controlled, revealing his capability in small increments. And with each punch he threw, each subtle demonstration of skill, the atmosphere in the arena grew tenser. By the time the bell rang to end the first round, the booing had taken on a different character. It was still there, still loud, but it felt obligatory now, like the crowd was going through the motions because they didn't know what else to do. The certainty they had felt when Tyson entered the ring was gone, replaced by something heavier, something that felt like dread. The opponent sat on his stool and his trainer leaned in close, talking quickly, trying to adjust the game plan. But the opponent wasn't really listening. He was staring across the ring at Tyson, who sat on his own stool with his head tilted back, breathing steadily, looking at the ceiling. And the opponent knew, in the way you know things without being told, that he was in trouble. Not immediate trouble, not knockdown trouble, but the kind of trouble that builds, that accumulates, the kind of trouble that starts with a single body shot delivered 19 seconds into a fight and grows from there. The fight continued. Rounds were fought. The opponent showed heart. He kept pressing, kept trying, but the mood in the arena never returned to what it had been in those first 18 seconds. The booing continued intermittently. The crowd still cheered when their fighter landed a punch, but the energy was different, tense, watchful, like everyone in the building was holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when the end came, whether by stoppage or decision, it didn't matter. The crowd's reaction was muted. Some booed, some cheered, but most just sat there, processing what they had witnessed. They had come to see Mike Tyson lose. They had booed him with everything they had, and for 19 seconds, it had felt like maybe, just maybe, their fighter had a chance. But then Tyson had thrown that body shot, and the mood had shifted, and everyone in the arena, whether they admitted it or not, had understood. This wasn't going to be the night. This wasn't going to be the fighter. Mike Tyson wasn't going to lose because they wanted him to. He was going to do what he always did, reveal his capability, apply his will, and win. Years later, people who were there would remember that fight, not because of how it ended, but because of that moment. 19 seconds in, when the booing was at its loudest, and Tyson threw a single punch, and the energy in the entire building changed. When hostility became tension, when certainty became doubt, when 15,000 people realized, all at once, that their belief wasn't enough. Mike Tyson didn't make them cheer. He didn't win them over. He didn't care about their approval. But in 19 seconds, he made them pay attention, made them understand that the outcome of the fight was never in question, that their booing, their hostility, their collective faith in his opponent, none of it mattered. What mattered was capability, and in 19 seconds, he had shown them his. The mood shifted, not from hostility to admiration, not from rejection to acceptance, from hostility to awareness, from noise to tension, from belief to doubt, and once that shift happened, it never shifted back. The crowd kept booing, but they knew, they all knew, they had come to see a fight, and what they got instead was a lesson, a reminder that sometimes, no matter how much you want something, no matter how loudly you scream for it, reality doesn't care. Mike Tyson heard the crowd boo, and 19 seconds later,
They were still booing, but they weren't sure anymore, and that uncertainty, that tension, that shift in mood was louder than any cheer could have been, because it meant they understood, finally, what they were actually watching. Not a fight, a demonstration, and the demonstration had just begun. You've probably been in that crowd, not literally, but metaphorically. You've been part of a collective certainty, a group of people who believed something so strongly that the belief itself felt like proof. Maybe it was a project everyone said would fail, a candidate everyone said couldn't win, a person everyone said wasn't capable, and you joined in, added your voice to the chorus, because when everyone around you believes something, it's easy to believe it too. And then something happened. Not a dramatic reversal, not a knockout blow, just a small moment, a single data point, a piece of evidence that didn't fit the narrative, and suddenly the certainty wavered. The belief that had felt so solid revealed itself as assumption, and the energy in the room, the mood, the atmosphere, the collective confidence shifted. It didn't shift to the opposite extreme. People didn't suddenly switch sides, but the hostility became hesitation, the rejection became wariness, the loud voices became quieter, not because they changed their minds, but because they realized they might be wrong, and that realization, that uncertainty, changed everything. The opponent who faced Tyson that night came in with the weight of 15,000 believers behind him, people who wanted him to win so badly they could taste it, and for 19 seconds, that belief felt real, felt powerful, felt like maybe it could actually manifest into reality through sheer force of collective will. But then Tyson threw a punch, one punch, and the mood shifted, not because the punch ended the fight, but because it revealed capability, showed that Tyson wasn't the villain they wanted him to be. He was just better, more skilled, more precise, and no amount of booing would change that. You can boo reality, you can reject it, you can gather 15,000 people in a room and all agree that reality is wrong. But eventually reality responds, and when it does, the mood shifts, from certainty to doubt, from belief to awareness, from noise to silence. The question isn't whether you'll be part of that crowd. You will be. Everyone is at some point. The question is what you do when the mood shifts, when the narrative you believed in reveals itself as wishful thinking, when the person you rooted against does exactly what they said they would do, regardless of how much you wanted them to fail. Do you keep booing? Do you double down on the belief that's already crumbling? Or do you let the shift happen? Let the awareness settle in. Accept that wanting something isn't the same as it being true. The crowd kept booing that night, but they weren't sure anymore. And Mike Tyson, standing in his corner, breathing steadily, looking at nothing, didn't need them to be sure. He just needed them to understand. 19 seconds. That's how long it took. 19 seconds for one punch to change the energy in an entire arena. Not through dominance, not through violence, through revelation, through the simple demonstration that capability doesn't care about belief. The mood shifted, and everyone felt it, and the fight continued. But it was never the same after that, because once certainty becomes doubt, it's almost impossible to get it back. Mike Tyson heard the crowd boo, and 19 seconds later, he made them listen, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. One precise, efficient, undeniable punch at a time.
Think about the last time you were absolutely certain about something. So certain that you didn't just believe it, you felt it in your bones. Maybe it was a relationship that seemed unshakable, a career path that felt guaranteed, a version of yourself you were sure you'd become, and then reality delivered its 19-second moment. Not a catastrophe, not a dramatic collapse, just a small, undeniable piece of evidence that made you realize your certainty was built on hope, not truth. The ground beneath you didn't disappear, but it shifted, and suddenly everything felt different, even though nothing visible had changed. That's what those 15,000 people felt. Not defeat, not surrender, just the uncomfortable awareness that their narrative was crumbling, and they'd have to decide whether to keep shouting into the void or accept what was actually happening in front of them. The hardest part wasn't the booing, it was the moment when the booing lost its power. When the collective voice that felt so strong, so righteous, so certain, revealed itself as just noise. Because once you feel that shift, once you understand that your belief, no matter how loud, can't change what's real, you have two choices. You can keep making noise and pretend the shift didn't happen, or you can go quiet, let the awareness settle in, and accept that sometimes the person you wanted to fail is simply better than you wanted them to be. Mike Tyson didn't need the crowd to stop booing. He just needed them to understand that their booing wouldn't change the outcome. 19 seconds, one punch, and 15,000 people learned the difference between wanting something and it being true.